the cool thing is not only did I have real estate income coming in, but I started getting all this, what I call residual income. So between the two of those, that's really where I was able to become financially independent. I was like working maybe 3 hours a week, making like $4,000 or $5,000 a month.
What's going on? We have our guest on today's podcast, Mr. Chris Miles, in the house with us. What's going on, Chris?
Hey, Brett. It's been good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too. It's been a little while. And I know you've actually been on a podcast before, on when I was doing, podcasting back, talking a lot about real estate with a purpose. And now you're on our podcast here, and it's just awesome to have you. I look up to you. I think that you're an amazing, not only business guy and owner, and you know how to build wealth and passive income and infinite banking and all that. But you're just an awesome man too. So thanks for being on our show today.
Hey, man, birds of a feather flock together, right? I mean, definitely takes one to know one, that's for sure.
That's awesome, man. Well, let's just really get into it, guys. We're really going to talk about, so Chris has, personal website's moneyripples.com. He has a YouTube channel that he just is always talking about how to build wealth. I think on the past episodes, we talk about this concept of infinite banking, which if you guys Google that, it's kind of this craze, especially in our circles. And I know I do infinite banking with Chris, and it's just been a huge tool for me and my family. You're also you're a very physical, active person. So I know you do marathons, and we were just talking about you're in like 4 mastermind groups, and you're traveling and doing all that. And you got a YouTube channel with 700 plus episodes, got your own podcast, been interviewed thousands and thousands of times. And we're going to just dig into maybe just who is Chris Miles first and foremost. That's like your bio, and that's your highlight reel. Let's just get down to it, man. Like inner radical honesty. Who is Chris Miles?
I'm just like a lot of you. Really, I am. I mean, I started out growing up in middle class, family, taught me good values, hard work, be honest, that kind of thing. When it came to money, I definitely was not taught a lot of good stuff. I was taught more the Dave Ramsey method, right? My dad would be like Dave Ramsey's older brother that Dave Ramsey looked up to. He was always like, you save everything, you be cheap like me. And, and then of course you pay off your debt, in fact, I didn't even know you could have debt. I thought it was, you would get in trouble for having debt. I didn't know you could even do that kind of thing. So I was taught just save everything, don't spend money and just be cheap, and that's how I was raised, right? I was raised in that kind of scarcity world. Heck, I mean, even 5 years of my life after my parents divorced, I lived in a trailer park for a little bit of time, Now I wasn't a double wide, so I was the fancy one.
It was the fancy. It was the luxury model.
So I was in luxury, but where the thing's made out of balsa wood, pretty much, But I mean, I wasn't raised around a lot of money or knowing that kind of stuff. Very, very middle class to lower middle class. But as time went on, I was the first one in my family to go to college. I didn't want that life, right? Because, my dad was always giving me advice at the table. And I was like, well, I don't want to be like him, saying things growing up like I can't afford it or money doesn't grow on trees. What do you think I am, made of money? Everything was about money and how he didn't have enough of it. And I didn't want to be that person. And so I remember, I want to become a business consultant, but I figured if I'm going to do that, I should have real life business experience. So I actually dropped out of college with one class before my bachelor's just to take what was supposed to be a temporary sabbatical and try to find a business to start just to kind of boost up my resume a little bit more before I got my MBA. Well, as I went out in the world trying to find a business to start, I didn't know what to do. Well, the first one that came was become a financial advisor. And there was something about it that just kind of intrigued me because it was kind of like Billy, like I was gonna say Billy Madison, same character. It's like the wedding singer, right? When he's going to the bank to try to get a job and they're like, well, what's your experience with money? He's like, well, I like it. I have a jar on top of the fridge. Right. I like to add more to it. And that's where you come in. I was like that showing up. Like I was even trying to I felt like I had to impress them. I didn't realize they would hire anybody off the street as long as you can have it, as long as you don't have a criminal record and you could pass a test with at least 70%, which I could do because I was, doing that in college anyways.
Wow.
So I became a financial advisor, dropped out of college, never went back. And I went the entrepreneur path because I want to control my time and my destiny. That's always been a big thing. But as time went on, after about, 4 years of being a financial advisor, my dad started asking me for advice. So I remember I sat down with him at his kitchen table, the same one he was giving me advice at. Now the table, no pun intended, was literally turned. And I was the one giving him advice. He says, all right, Chris, I'm 61 years old. Y2K sucked. It wasn't friendly to my portfolio, my 401k. What do I do? And I'm looking at his 401k. I'm looking at the fact that he paid off all his debt. He was very proud of that. And I said, all right, Dad, I'm going to be honest with you. You're going to have to die in 5 years if you decide to retire today, because you have 5 years worth of money left, and that's it. Even after saving and stuffing your 401k, being debt free, doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, and you're 61 years old, but you only have 5 years left. If it weren't for Social Security, you'd have a little bit more now. He's like, well, I don't want to hear that. What else can I do? What else can I make sure I can actually retire and not run out of money? And I said, I don't know. You did everything right. And that was my awakening moment, because remember, I mean, one of the big reasons I went into financial advising, not just to learn about money, but I remember my dad's words would echo to me, where he'd say things like, Chris, I'm going to die working. I'm going to work until I'm dead. This job will literally kill me. And he already had strokes and heart attacks up to this point. And I went to that business thinking, if I could just give him 1 year or 2 years of his life back, that would be worth it. And now what happens? The very guy that inspired me to want to really do this business is broke. And then I started to look around, and I realized that my clients were in the same position. Even the ones I inherited after decades of advice from other advisors, they weren't any better off. They were still worried about running out of money. No one was truly financially free. And even worse, you look at the financial advisors who should be the ones that have it figured out above all else. Yet they weren't financially free either. You couldn't find one. There's guys working there since the late 1970s in my office. There's over 100 guys. Not one could you find in that office say they could retire off their investments, not just off the commissions that they're earning. And I had a choice. I said, I remember meeting with a friend who was in real estate investing, and I met people that actually were living and preaching what they preached, right? They actually were financially free. And I had to make a choice. I'm like, do I take the alternative path, the path that's been proven to work, but fewer take that road? Or do I take the path that the majority says to take, which is, the old accumulation method of saving forever, and hopefully you'll have something someday. And so I quit. Right? I picked the former, right? I went with the real estate investors. I said, this is ridiculous. I like proof. I like to know that things work. I can't stay in integrity and teach what I know doesn't work. So I left, and later that year, by doing some passive investments and even some things within some business streams of income, I was able to become financially independent by the time I was 28, almost 29 years old.
Wow. That's awesome. That's an amazing story. Number one, yeah, I think it's such an oxymoron about the financial advisor. And you start to look around, and not only your clients, but the people that you work with weren't financially free. And that's typically what you guys are constantly talking about. You're constantly talking about, how do we grow our wealth? How do we grow financially? And obviously there was a huge, huge problem there. So you got into real estate. What type of real estate investor were you? What did that kind of look like for you? Was it passive investments? Like, how did you start to build your portfolio of that passive investment income?
Yeah, the first one I started was with my starter home, right? The one I had, renovated and, put all my blood, sweat, and tears into. And I eventually, did a kind of a creative strategy where I sold it to an investor at full appraisal, leased it back from him, and then went and turned around and subleased it. So, I didn't even want to go the full, normal rental route, right? Because I was like, I want to get that equity out. I want to strip the equity so that I can invest it elsewhere and still be able to earn rent off that. So that's what I was starting to do. Started to do that. Did some things with like lending and whatnot. And, and then another thing I did too, which was interesting, is that, I quit being a financial advisor, right? But it drove me nuts that people kept asking me questions. And because people would ask me like, well, what are you doing now? And I had no clue what to tell them. I was like, well, I'm not really a real estate investor. I mean, I would put money with guys that were flippers and stuff, like short-term lending and whatnot, but I wasn't really I didn't see myself as like just a real estate investor. And it was kind of interesting. And so they would say, well, what are you doing? I'm like, I sell drugs. Just buy some time, because I'm like, how do I explain this world, which to me, as who was a financial advisor, this seemed like a foreign world, a world that was hidden for me. It was like the Matrix, right? It was like completely unknown. And one thing that I ended up doing too is one of my friends that was one of my mentors, and he was doing real estate investing as well. And he asked me, he said, Chris, okay, you quit being a financial advisor. I know you're a mortgage broker now, because I started doing that because I felt I could be honest as a mortgage broker, So I started doing that. And he said, well, do you like being a mortgage broker? I said, well, I love teaching them, about, how to like open their mind with what they could do with a mortgage, especially if you could pull out equity and invest it. But I hate underwriting. I hate applications and paperwork. I just hate it. He said, well, Chris, why don't you find somebody who loves that kind of thing?
Mm.
And in a scarcity world, like being a financial advisor is, I never consider I could share the wealth, right? I could share business. And I said, well, is there anybody crazy enough to just want to do paperwork? He said, yes, trust me, there are nerds that love it. And so I asked my broker, I said, listen, is there somebody in this company here that would fit this profile? And they said, yeah, that's Clark.
Mm.
Go find Clark and ask him. And so I went to Clark and say, hey, Clark, if I just send people to you, I teach them about the mortgage, they already know what they want to do. You just have to do all the work. Would you do it for 50-50 split? And he said, yes. So I'd spend maybe a half hour or so with these people. And they're like, great, this is awesome. How do I get this mortgage started? I said, great, talk to Clark. And then a month or so later, I would get a check in the mail for like $1,000, $2,000. I thought, this is great. This is so easy. Like, this is way easier than being a mortgage broker before, when I was doing it all myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I wouldn't even build a business. It wasn't even like anything like that at all. There would be friends and family saying, hey, do you know how I can do blank? I'm like, oh yeah, talk to so-and-so. And so even like I'd have friends who were getting married. I'd say, don't go to this mall to buy the jewelry. Go to this wholesale jeweler. You'll save like, you'll pay like a third of the price.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh, and here's the card. And then that jeweler would actually send me a 5% thank you check, like a referral check, right? And so the cool thing is, not only did I have real estate income coming in, but I started getting all this, what I call residual income, right? Mm-hmm. I separate them from passive income, which is more investment income coming in that I don't have to work for, versus residual income coming in. And so between the two of those, that's really where I was able to become financially independent. I was like working maybe 3 hours a week, making like $4,000 or $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
And that's all I really needed to take care of my family at that time.
Wow. So you're almost like just as like this connector.
Yeah.
I think about it, like you didn't really like do a lot of the work with some of these residual checks, like the mortgage brokerage or, the jewelry, but you were just kind of connecting people, which I think that it's a great business in and of itself. And I think you launched into this, into this, money ripples, and you just connect people all the time with that. So, and it's funny that, I think that's just becoming this more and more business. I think we don't think about that, honestly. Like, I talk to people all the time about, oh yeah, I think the Collective Genius, we're built in a Collective Genius, and I'll mention that to someone. There's like, oh, I do this and this for real estate guys, and I'm like, man, like you should really be a part of the Collective Genius. And then I'll introduce them to the Collective Genius, Jason, and I'll get a check in the mail, and I'm like, wow, that was cool, and it's just kind of the same thing. And so that kind of started this whole business. So now, I want to talk about what you're kind of doing today, because number one, we talked about you work with Penn Mutual, right? You're one of the top guys there. I do some infinite banking with yourself. You also do some real estate investing and teaching on that. But like, what would you call yourself like today? Because you do a lot of everything. You're still kind of doing this business, but would you call yourself a financial advisor, or is that the wrong term?
No,
for you?
I refer to myself as an anti-financial advisor, right? Because I really am kind of the guy that stands against it, which is interesting. And I mean, you mentioned Penn Mutual. That's one of many companies I've worked with, but I'm definitely one of the top guys in that company because, for investors like ourselves, they have like the perfect way to be able to invest and double dip with the infinite banking concept with them. But it's interesting. I just got back from a study group with some of the top guys in that company, most of which are financial advisors, right? And it's always funny because every year I go there, there's always somebody kind of pulls me aside, like, hey, Chris, so like your business and what you do just blows me away. Like you do podcasts, like you do YouTube, because if they're securities licensed, they can't speak publicly without having it pre-recorded, sent to their compliance department to get it approved to make sure they didn't say anything illegal. And then it comes back, right?
Wow.
Where I don't, I dropped that securities license back in 2005,
yeah.
Because it was just stupid. And the reason they have it is because they have handcuffs, because their assets under management, the money that they make off the money that you put with them, they're making a commission off that. And so some of those guys making at least like on the low end, like I was talking to a guy like maybe made like 450,000 a year or so. To the high end, there's guys making millions a year, and they can't quit because they don't want to lose that income, because they don't have other streams of income.
Yeah.
So they'll pull me aside sometimes, say, Chris, like not just how do you do in your business, but how do you create passive income? Like how can I quit?
Yeah, because if they
They
quit, they
just
lose
don't
all
know
that.
how.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Wow.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing is like, so I'm more of an anti-financial advisor in that sense because I help people figure out how to get their money working for them today, how to find that cash, be able to use it in a way that generates real passive income. And I don't mean the passive income like some people will talk about, which is, hey, why don't you create a side business by flipping real estate properties or doing wholesaling, for like 30 hours a week, right? Like that's not exactly passive. That's
Mm-hmm.
an active income that can make you a crap load of money,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a great business model, but it's not truly passive. And so
Mm-hmm.
the people that we usually teach are people that are more like the busy W-2, manager, working for their job, or someone that's a business owner just wants to have the option to really be work optional. They work
Mm-hmm.
because they want to, not because they have to, but if that's step away or reduce hours, they have the freedom to do that. And that's really the people that we serve and help.
That's awesome. So let's just kind of start with there. A lot of our listeners maybe fit that particular profile, and they want to build wealth. And there's so many different ways to do it. And I know for me, like there's so many different ways that I'm doing business. I have my active income that's my house flipping business, and then I do
Mhm.
some notes over here to try to build that passive, and then I do some rental properties. But then beyond that, there's other options, right? We do the infinite
Yeah.
banking model. I try to put some money into an IRA and build up tax-free types of money. So talk to us about like what are some of the buckets that you kind of start with that, person that's doing pretty well, got some money, and they want to use it to work for them. Yeah, take us into that.
We really customize it to the person
Mm-hmm.
because everybody has their own flavor of and preferences. Like for example, if someone wants to get the tax benefits of being a real estate professional, right, where they're able to show losses against their active income and their jobs, especially, or their businesses. And it doesn't even have to be them. It could be their spouse, right? Maybe they have a non-working spouse or a spouse only working part-time to where we can make them a real estate professional where they, claiming at least 15 hours a week in the real estate side of things. We can do things like turnkey rentals, in addition, maybe they have their own rentals as well or short-term rentals, but rentals are definitely an easy place to go. Definitely, I would put that in the category of semi-passive
Mm-hmm.
because, even if you have a property manager doing all the work for you, still there's decisions. You're the boss,
Yeah.
right? And in a lot of ways, I like that. Like I
Mm-hmm.
like having that kind of control.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't mind having a property manager to deal with finding renters and dealing with all the hassles and stuff. And then I'm the one that just has to,
Make a few
deal with the
decisions
bigger
here and there.
decisions. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, just here and there.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not. People think, sometimes people paint it as a magical picture, like you just sit back and you get mailbox money. The
Mm-hmm.
truth is that you're gonna have crap happen there too, right?
Yeah.
And especially renter decides to go, to vacate or you have to evict, and even though you're not doing the work, still you have to deal with the financial situation of that because you might have a mortgage on that property. You have to still keep paying if you're not getting rent.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things that can go wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but for the most part, I mean, that's a great one to go through. You mentioned like short-term type lending is always a great option, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you can lend your money short-term, especially when people are kind of nervous about the market. They're not sure what to do with their money. Sometimes it's a great option to say, hey, I can invest this for 6 or 12 months, get paid, and on a per year basis, 10, 12%
Mm-hmm.
or more. There's things like funds, there's different types of funds. And I don't mean like mutual funds or
Mm-hmm.
even REITs. Ugh, I hate it when people say, oh, you want a REIT, right? Like, no, not a REIT. Like, that's not even really real estate.
Great.
No, we want like actual funds that might, instead of you just lending to one particular project or house, it might be that they might be doing the lending to hundreds of investors
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of spreading your risk,
Mm-hmm.
right? So those kind of funds could be something like that. Syndications, syndicated opportunities like, multifamily, whether it's apartment buildings, whether you're talking about self-storage. I mean, I see self-storage making a great comeback right now.
Mm-hmm.
And not many people are talking about it yet. There could be commercial real estate, even though commercial's got its butt kicked in the last year or so,
Mm-hmm.
especially since post-COVID. You have to be kind of careful what kind of commercial real estate you're looking at. Even in the oil and gas space, we have one opportunity within because we have a whole vetted group of individuals in our network. There are over 20 different people and different types of opportunities. And one of them is in the oil and gas or the mineral rights space.
Mm-hmm.
So you get paid on the leasing of the land to oil companies, but you also get paid royalties on anything they drill, oil and natural gas primarily.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of cool because you can get double digit returns, especially if oil prices rise and you're having to pay more at the pump, you might as well make more money as well when the pumps prices go up too.
Yeah.
Partnership's another great one. As I've done as well. I'm actually partnered with a guy that does raw land. It does like a lot of seller financing and things like that. And that's been one of my best opportunities where I'm making, roughly about 45+% a year on that partnership. Again, I'm passive, I'm financing it, but they're doing the work, and we're doing it as partnership where we split the profits.
That's awesome. There's so many different opportunities, and I love, again, you call yourself an anti-financial advisor, because typically you walk into a financial advisor's office and it's kind of just one bucket, right? There's that mutual funds,
Mm-hmm.
there's some stocks, stock things, and you kind of rattled off a lot of different, like, what is your flavor, which I get really
Yeah.
excited about these other opportunities, and you didn't even mention some of them as well, and let's just kind of dive in,
Yep.
because I know one of your deep flavors that you've really helped out myself and other real estate investors and W2 workers is just concept of infinite banking. And now this is kind of foreign, so just give us the high level picture of this. Because I know it can get kind of complicated a little bit, but give us the high level. Why would someone want to look at this? The concept of infinite banking, and yeah, what is that all about?
Yeah, infinite banking is basically a tax-free supercharged savings account in the way that we use it. Now, the vehicle you use is whole life insurance, right? Which is the least sexy type of insurance. Well, okay, maybe term insurance is less sexy than that, but it's definitely not an exciting type of insurance compared to some of the insurances out there. But especially when you're doing investing, whether you're a business owner, you're a real estate investor, or whatever you are, it works great because even though they have the death benefit, like all life insurance does, we minimize the death benefit, but allow however much cash we're going to put in. We try to do the lowest death benefit needed to allow that cash to go in and grow tax free and come out tax free. But so it's kind of like a Roth IRA, but you don't have to wait till 59 and a half to access it, right? Like you mentioned IRAs earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with traditional IRAs is that you put money in, yeah, you get the tax deduction, but you got to pay taxes down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So Roth IRAs are usually preferred, but then you still have all those dumb rules like the 59 and a half rule. You got to wait till, right? And you got to, if you pull it out too early, you get that 10% penalty and stuff. And, so we don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. There is no 59 and a half rule. We can actually use that money now. So what we do is we overfund the policy by putting in more than what's just needed to pay the insurance costs. That builds up in this tax-free account that's making more than point nothing percent like you get paid at your bank, which, now we're worried about bank failures. I never worry about bank failures because I have insurance companies that are actually more secure and have insurance that covers them in case of default, better than FDIC. So I get paid higher returns. My money's better, safer. Three, it's better protected from lawsuits and creditors. In most states, you have 100% protection of that cash in there. You could have millions in there. Someone sues and wins, and they cannot get to it. They can get to anything in your bank. They can get to most of your investments. They can even put liens on your properties, but they cannot get to your life insurance. So one of the few places you can store money where people can't touch it.
Wow.
And then, like I said, beyond being tax-free and everything, the cool thing is I can use that money now. I don't have to wait till retirement. I can use that money now. And what you do is you borrow it from the insurance company. So you borrow from them, leaving your money in there, growing compound interest, tax-free, all of it's still there. You just get a line of credit from the insurance company or a bank, and then you use it to invest. And what happens is that the returns from that investment, you use that to pay back towards that line of credit. This is similar to, if you've ever heard the strategy of velocity banking, where people used to get their home equity lines of credit, not as much anymore, but they would get a home equity line of credit, they would invest it, and they would take the cash flow to pay it down. And then as they paid it down, they would then cash it back out and invest again.
Mm-hmm.
Same exact strategy with the life insurance. But the cool thing is where a HELOC, it only costs you interest. The life insurance is paying you like 5-6% interest,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Tax-free. And then you're taking out a loan. So you actually make money off of the interest from the insurance, and you make money on your investment. So you actually make money in two places at once versus just using a savings account where it only makes money in one place, which is the investment.
I love it. I love it. I know I've been using this strategy, guys. So again, just another tool to build wealth. And I would just, knowledge, get the knowledge, listen to Money Ripples with Chris. And, there's so many different things out there. And what is your flavor? But I think that a lot of times we just kind of go through life, we drift here and there, and we don't really surgically just analyze a lot of these things in our life. And like, sometimes we're always thinking like, oh, I need to make more money. I need to go start this other active business. But like, what do you already have right now that you can just work better, right?
That's
Are you
right.
doing the Dave Ramsey? You mentioned Dave Ramsey. So let's just kind of end the show with that. So there might be some Dave Ramsey fans on here. So a lot of people would maybe be like your dad, get out of debt, save up, and don't get any more debt, no credit cards. What do you say to that particular strategy as it works for America?
For general America, I mean, that's a great place to start, right? I mean, it's like when you go to college, if somebody can't quite get to the normal math class, you take that remedial math class, so then you can get up to the 101 math class, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I see Dave Ramsey. Like, he gives some good 101 stuff. The problem is, once you go beyond budgeting and maybe paying off credit card debt and stuff like that, anything with investing and wealth building, not good advice.
Yeah.
Not good advice at all. I mean, telling you to gamble your money in a mutual fund, which I've seen has been proven not to work,
Mm-hmm.
and there's lots of evidence to show otherwise. It's just not good advice. He gives very old advice that way. So he's good. He's good for people that are just starting out, trying to get a basic foundation of money. But if you want to really take your stewardship to another level, and really we all are stewards on this planet, right? I believe that we're here to make this planet better, to leave a
Mm-hmm.
better footprint, and to make it better than how we showed up to it. If you want to be a better steward and expand your resources and your means to bless more lives, that requires you to up level your
Mm-hmm.
stewardship ability. And that's something that we talk about a lot. We get a lot of the Dave Ramsey poster children that said, "Hey, I'm debt free. I did everything he asked, and I can't retire. I'm not free."
Mm-hmm.
Great. Let's get you free, which makes you a better servant for God, right? It allows
Yeah.
you to be able to be a more powerful servant and steward on this planet to have a better impact. And that's why the company's called Money Ripples, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that ripple effect you can create as you prosper financially and have greater resources to bless more human lives.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for being on the podcast today. I wish you so much success, guys. Make sure you guys go check out moneyripples.com. Check out Chris Miles on his YouTube channel as well. Has over 700 plus episodes on there. So it's a wrap. Chris Miles, thank you so much, buddy.
It's been a pleasure, Brett. Thanks.